Have we met?
All right, well, once again, for the second time today, welcome back to Hello Earth. We experienced technical difficulties, we've experienced medical emergencies, but nothing will keep us from you, the people.
Nothing will keep us from the truth.
From the truth either. Yes, this is truth in itself. But all right, so back to where we were. You are the medical emergency.
Yes.
And
I think some explanations are in order.
yeah, we're really trying to do this like every 2 weeks at the most. I think we're a little bit over that at this particular point in time, but it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. But well, let's just hear about your last week.
Yeah, it's been loads of fun, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So we were scheduled to record this episode last Friday, a week from today, and I messaged the boys and said, call off the dogs, hold up, I'm hurting, something's happening. And I was having this pain in the back right flank of my body, and I'm like, is this a kidney stone? I've had two kidney stones, and it's a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, I have an unfortunate history with those as well.
Yeah. But I knew immediately that this couldn't be, because the way that it felt, the pain was wildly different. And then I even had like nausea, which I never got nausea from kidney stone. Mm-hmm. So I was having pain like all day. That day I woke up, I'm like, I'm hurting. Something's going on. And I've had this pain on and off for a couple years, to be honest.
Right.
And I'm just playing it off because I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah. I vaguely remember you mentioning like some random pains and aches before too. And like, I guess that's probably all this same boulder rolling down the hill.
Yeah, I thought I had a stomach ulcer, like that a pain that I've been having for years and years. I'm just like, this is just my stomach ulcer flaring up. I'm just made it up, It sounded good.
The more you're talking, I'm fucking terrified for myself right now, because it's like, this sounds like what I've been experiencing.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds better than I've got like stomach cancer or some like crazy thing. So like, out of sight, out of mind, forget it, kind of thing. But anyways, back to last Friday. I got to about 3:00, and I got this flop sweat going on, like I'm sweating.
Sure.
And I did not feel right, and I laid down. I'm like, I never lay down at 3:00 during the day. And then Ashley gets home, my wife, and she looks at me and she goes,
my wife.
Yeah. She looks at me and she goes, something's not right. And she grabs the thermometer and she checks my temperature. It's like 101. She's like, let's go to the ER. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, it's okay. I'll be fine. Just let this pass. I've felt this before.
The show must go on.
Yeah.
We got a podcast to do.
We got to roll that bean footage, man. But anyways, she said, no, we're going. So we go to the ER. And I sit in there for 4 fucking hours, and I don't know anybody else's experience being in an ER.
That's my experience as well. Yeah.
But then you also have to pair it with, and to be as delicate and nice as possible, some colorful folks that are in there. There's always a couple that are just trying to fake something to get some pain meds, and
right.
There's some people that are just homeless and talking to themselves for 4 hours. It's just like,
let's clear this up real quick. Colorful in personality.
Yeah.
And that could be misconstrued.
Yeah. And I feel really bad for all of these people because they all have their own problems and vices. But you have to imagine being in this bad pain and you're sitting in the waiting room for 4 hours, and then you pair it with like just the weirdness that's going on around everywhere. So it just makes it even more anxiety-ridden to be in there. But anyways, I feel like I'm kind of dancing around this. I finally go back, and they said, "What's going on with you?" I'm like, "I have a pain here." It's like, "Okay, yeah, this is great." Or no, they didn't say it was great, but they were like, "We're gonna do a CT scan. You could either have COVID, a virus, or
Everything is COVID.
yeah, everything is COVID." I mean, and they stuck that thing in my nostril. It went. I felt like they stuck it in my eyeball. I mean, it was just. I mean, it hurt like hell.
Yeah.
And I've had the nose swab, but that nurse shoved that thing in there. But anyways, so the doctor, he came in and said, "We're going to do a CT scan. It could be a kidney stone. It could be, I thought it was gallbladder or something. Mm-hmm. Just from me being an expert WebMD Googler.
Right.
And he's like, or it could be appendix issues. So I go back there, they do the CT scan, and they give me this injection in the IV, and she's like, you're going to feel really hot in your face, and you're going to feel like you might need to pee. I'm like, okay, whatever. So,
Sure.
Yeah, whatever you say. So I get back, and I'm put my hands up and lean back, and they do the CT scan, and as soon as, right before they start it, immediate rush of heat hits my face. I mean, it's like almost like a sunburn heat. And I'm like, did I pee? I'm like, so it's like literally this nurse was just like, boop, spot on, like with everything. It's like, which that was weird. So I get back, wait another hour. At this point, I think it's like 1:00 in the morning. My wife's tired. And they come in and the doctor goes, well, well. And so he said, your appendix is trashed, and we got to get that guy out of there. It looks bad. It's really swollen. And they don't want it. They were just worried that it could burst. That can open up a whole other swarm of like pretty serious issues. So at that point, it was like 1:30. I told my wife, like, go home, get some sleep. They put me up in like a really nice room, and I slept for like 3 hours, and then they woke me up at like 4:30 in the morning. They did a laparoscopic surgery and pulled my appendix out at like 5. I was back in my room by like 5:30, 6 o'clock. And then I woke up. I mean, let me tell you this really quick. Being under anesthesia is like pretty much dead.
Right.
Like, has anybody been under?
Yeah, I've had some surgery, or a surgery. Yeah, just one. And yeah, I mean, I have a bit of a different experience. Let's finish your story first.
Okay. I had a little bit of a bad reaction to the anesthesia afterwards because my heart rate was like 120, and I had to wait there for like an hour for that to like calm down. So I like kind of woke up keyed up.
Right.
But man, once they put me under, I could have been dead. I mean, it was just basically like there's this lapse of time that just didn't exist.
Yeah.
For me. Yep. But anyways, all the surgery went without a hitch for the most part. Other than that, and they sent me home like 3 hours later. I mean, I was home by like lunchtime. So there's my story.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, just what, with losing an appendix, like what does the appendix even do? Like, I've heard that it's like a outdated bit of technology we have in our body, essentially, that we don't even use anymore.
Yeah.
But then, like, I've heard, like, I remember when you brought it up in the Discord, like Tomlin was saying something about it, like sends good stuff to your gut or something. Like,
yeah.
What did they say you have to worry about, like, moving forward with that?
They gave me no ramifications of not having.
You're good. You're a little bit lighter, buddy. Congratulations.
Yeah. I mean, they said that it could, you could get some like digestion issues, mm-hmm. like IBS is a little more prone for you.
Right.
But as far as like your appendix and its role, it's basically like your redheaded stepchild that's hooked to you. It's useless.
That's just so weird that we have like a whole ass organ in there that's just it only causes problems.
Yeah.
Like,
Evolution.
yeah.
I mean, well, and
I feel like
honestly,
that's a hit towards like the intelligent design shit is like, so God gave us a useless organ that only causes us pain.
yeah. Well, and I honestly, I don't even think it's an organ. Like it's just like a little offshoot from our large intestine, and it kind of like your large intestine goes like here, and then it just kind of shoots off to the right about 2 or 3 or maybe 3 or 4 inches.
I believe that. I'm unaware of all of the organs and what they may or may not be. So.
Yeah, there's this thing. I want to say abscess, but I know it's not that. Where diverticulitis. I don't know if y'all have heard of that. It's extremely painful, but it's where like your poo kind of gets hung up somewhere in your organs.
Yeah.
And it's almost the same thing. It's just the organ has created a spot for it to get stuck in, and it's not the appendix. So it's almost the same thing. So
It's just so terrifying. Like, I mean, I know you said that you'd been feeling some pings and pains for, a couple years now or whatever, but like still just like the suddenness of just like, oh, I need to lay down.
yeah. Well, I would say what scares me more than anything is knowing me, and if I wasn't a married man, I wouldn't have gone to the hospital.
Yeah.
Just dead.
I think they do say that having a significant other can not shave, but add some years to your life.
Oh yeah, I mean,
It could also shave them, I'm sure.
Yeah, they could shave them off too. That's for sure. With stress.
yeah, they're clutch to have around for sure. But with like anesthesia, my only experience with that was many years ago, like right out of high school or something. I had what's called a pilonidal cyst, and like it was at the base of my spine essentially, and there's a lot of different things that it could be. Like sometimes it's just like a ball of hair, like that kind of gets trapped in there and like infected and it swells up. And I was dealing with that problem for like a month or 2 before I took it seriously, I guess. And I just had this lump growing like right above my ass crack. And what triggered me to actually go to urgent care was one of my friends, I can't remember exactly what happened. I think they just like kicked me in the ass, like jokingly, and like
we were playing Ultimate.
Is that what it was?
Ultimate Frisbee.
Because I feel like it happened at Wesley's house, but maybe not. Maybe it was Ultimate Frisbee. One of my friends, randomly, jokingly, all in good heartedness, kicks me in the ass, sends me straight to urgent care.
Yeah.
Because
I knew you then, right?
Or was probably around the time that I was meeting you. I don't know for sure.
It seems like I remember you saying you had to do. Yeah. You were having some issues there at some point.
And the terrifying thing about the pilonidal cyst is that sometimes it's not like hair or skin that just gets infected and inflamed or whatever. But apparently, some people can develop pilonidal cysts from being essentially like a failed twin. Essentially, like you should have been a twin, but like something bad happens and like they get attached to you to some degree, I guess, and like that's what some of those are, which I don't think that's what mine was, but like just reading about.
You never asked.
I never asked. No, I was terrified because they asked me if I wanted to know what was in it, like, but this was right after I woke up from anesthesia and went through the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. So back to anesthesia, I remember being rolled into a hallway right after they applied it, and they were like counting down or whatever. I heard like 3 or 4 numbers, and I was, and I wake up, and like when I woke up, I remember feeling pretty normal, honestly. And I have this wound right above my ass crack where they removed this cyst, and they have to put gauze into it. And holy shit, that is worse than kidney stones, worse than being kicked in the nuts 1,000 times. Like, it was and this was after they gave me like 3 or 4 different painkillers, and like they'd walk in after 10-15 minutes. Are you feeling it yet? You feeling pretty good now? And I'm just laying there like, I feel nothing. Like, not in a good way as in numb, but I don't feel this medication kicking in. And like, I don't know if it's just like a tolerance thing with me or what, but whatever they were giving me was not cutting it. And I felt every bit of that shit. And just, I have rarely gone back to doctors or hospitals since then, just because that was, I mean, I'm sure they saved my life or something, because it was, when I got to urgent care, I had a fever, like you were saying, like, I think mine was like 102, 103, something like that. And they sent me right into emergency surgery out of urgent care. And, yeah, that was one of the worst experiences of my life.
And I bet you a lot of that pain too is just because there's so many nerve endings that go to that specific spot right there at the end of your spine. I bet that just really set it off.
Yeah, it was pretty awful. But
doesn't Family Guy have an episode where they make fun or talk about that little periodontic or whatever that was called?
Pilonidal cyst.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've watched some Family Guy, but I'm no connoisseur of it. I don't know all about it or anything.
I feel like there's a moment, I mean, they have so many cutaways in their shows, but where they talk about that, and Peter, I think he had some, like a cyst here, and it was like talking to him and stuff. Yeah. I don't know if it was the same thing or not, but yeah.
So after you wake up from the anesthesia and everything, how long were you in the hospital after that?
About 5 hours.
Oh, so pretty much in and out.
Yeah. I would have been out of there sooner, but I had some, my heart rate was, a little fast afterwards. And they think it was just a negative reaction to the anesthesia. Plus my body went through quite a bit of trauma. Right. And even though I didn't feel any pain, but my body was undergoing a lot of stress.
Right.
And,
shock is weird.
And that can it can like increase your heart rate, just because you're, for one, all that pain, they're moving everything around, and they've cut these like 4 holes in your body to pull it out of this tiny little hole. So in my abdomen there for like 3 or 4 days, I couldn't even like bend over or lean left or right. But it seemed like after about the 4th day, it was just like, boom. I woke up and I was like, I'm ready to rock, guys. Yeah. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, there you go.
But, I mean, I still have a little tinge here and there, but for the most part, feeling great. I'm having my first beer, or actually second beer.
We're not drinking beer. It's canned water. There's
yes.
liquid death underneath these koozies.
That's
YouTube.
true. Yes.
Fuck off. Oh no, I'm not allowed to curse either. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what to do with
we've
that.
been kicked out of their algorithms again.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we slacked off for too long probably. So if you're seeing this, you're probably one of the lucky ones.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You had a little bit of downtime. Get any good quality time to doom scroll or anything? What's on your radar?
Yeah, I had quite a bit of time to actually look into the. I don't know if you want to get into this now, but the whole 9/11 thing.
Yeah. Let's hold off on that a little bit, because
right.
I got a lot on that, honestly. But
okay, sure. Yeah, we can wait on it.
So not to say, what are you into? No, let's not. What I'm into is, but that is what I'm doing. Have you heard about I guess the first thing I wanted to bring up was, I know that you watch Neil deGrasse Tyson and stuff, so I'm hoping maybe have you been watching any of his stuff lately? Or there's another planet apparently that's been found in our solar system, and I just think that's a particularly peculiar thing for us to just stumble upon, given the level of knowledge that we claim to know about what's going on.
I saw it. I haven't looked extensively on it. The last episode of Mr. Tyson that I watched was about the Doge slashing the budget, or attempting to slash the budget on the chief scientists of the U.S. And I can talk about it later if you want, but yeah, that was kind of alarming.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And I don't know how I remember the article I read was from ABC, I think, so I guess I probably took it seriously because of that. But yeah, like hypothetical Planet X, stuff like that. And this ties back into a lot of like deep conspiracy stuff, and that's why I'm a little bit freaked out about it. And I don't know how much you know about, like, have you ever heard of the Anunnaki and stuff like that?
I have not.
All right.
Okay.
All right, we're going to get deep here.
Yes.
So, this is part of a conspiracy that goes all the way back to, like, ancient Sumer, which there are tablets that I don't know if anybody really knows what the hell they say or not. People claim to know how to decipher the texts on them and stuff, but who really knows? I think a lot of it stems from a guy, I think back in the 80s, maybe before that, but his name was Zachariah Sitchin, I think. And he had a series of books where he was talking about essentially Planet X, what they're saying that they found now, and that there's this other planet that's supposed to be in our solar system that sometimes will leave our solar system and then come back. And what he was positing was that this is where a race of essentially god aliens hail from. And this would, I think, in theory, be when people talk about the theory on, like, oh, maybe aliens were here, several million years ago, and they, like, crossed our DNA with other DNA to make or not crossed our DNA, but they mixed up all this DNA to create us, essentially. Mm-hmm. This is the people that would have supposedly done that, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just really weird to hear out of nowhere, especially with everything else going on right now, how okay, all this UFO stuff going on, and now there's another planet that we just didn't know about. It's just like, how did we miss that?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? Because I don't know exactly the textbook definition between, like, a star and a planet and all that. I know there's controversy surrounding, like, Pluto. Is it a planet? Is it a star? What the hell is it? But
yeah, I can speak a little to the Pluto guy, and I can also speak to, like, an orbit coming in and out, and well, I'll start with Pluto. Pluto is pretty much considered like a moon or almost a satellite. Like, yeah, we could call it a planet. There's some more, like, minutia behind, like, why it was declassified as a planet, but it's because it's so damn little. It's so small. It's not even complete. Well, Earth's not even completely round.
Right.
But it's very small.
Easy. Easy. Are we not round? Is that what you're saying? Are we going there?
Yeah. Earth is not a perfect circle, which I thought was interesting to know. As far as this Planet X, past Neptune, I could totally believe that it could come into picture and out of picture over a span of thousands, if not millions of years, because of how far away it is. And you can only keep something in orbit. I mean, it could change orbit, but if you look at the orbits from, like, a diagram, they're all these little perfect circles.
Yeah.
But in all reality,
it's more like ovals or something.
they're ovals,
probably, yeah.
because and the farther you get away from the sun, because we're orbiting around the sun's gravitational pull. The farther you get away from the sun, the more oval they're going to be, or abstract they're going to become. I mean, there is a symmetrical pattern to their orbit.
Yeah.
But it looks like one of those spirographs, if you know what I'm talking about, at some point, like you start drawing them out.
Right.
But I could totally believe that this Planet X could have such a wide. It almost behaves like like an asteroid would, and like Halley's Comet. I mean, goes like almost out of our solar system and then comes back in and zips around the sun real quick, and then goes way back out in the old solar. So I could totally see where maybe we just haven't seen this planet until now because it's been way out past the Oort cloud, which is
Yeah.
like the outer thing. Let's read this. It says it would take between 10,000 and 20,000 Earth years to make one full orbit around the sun.
That's
So that would
absurd to me. Like,
So I mean, if you think of 20,000 years ago, nobody had satellites.
no, yeah,
So-
we never would have. I mean, but apparently, maybe if people are translating those Sumerian tablets correctly, maybe they fucking knew about it, and they weren't 20,000 years ago. That was more like, I guess 5 to 6, something like that.
Yeah.
That they would have been writing all that kind of shit. So like, it's just I don't know, man. I get really freaked out by things that, even if they are just hypotheticals and like ancient texts and shit like that, and then like we prove it now, like it's so easy to kind of fall into the conspiracy holes here because it's like, well, if they were right about that, maybe they're right about the Anunnaki.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, like that's a very fun conspiracy theory that I would like to believe, but I don't know if I do, which I don't really, I'm not particularly religious, so I don't have that contradiction going into it. So I don't really know what to believe. So I'm open to it, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I get kind of into the same argument where it's just, if all of the religious people can believe what they believe, then, you know, I can believe this and not feel that bad about it. Like,
No.
because I mean, all that shit's crazy. If there can be Scientology, then I can believe in aliens.
You can have a strong feeling about whatever the hell you want.
Right.
You know, it's just, yeah. I mean, I absolutely 100%.
And see, that is weird. What's it saying about Enlil and Enki there? Because those are people in the, I'm pretty sure that's in the, oh shit, what's it called? It's like one of the most ancient stories from Sumer. This beer has knocked it right out of me. But yeah, they're in other stories and stuff too. But God, this is gonna bug me. All right, I gotta stop looking at it. But yeah, I don't know. It's just really weird that. Do you know there's that crazy ass picture that we got out of space. Somebody got it where it's like the fingers of creation or something like that. You know what I'm talking about? I can't remember. That's not what it's called, but it's something like that. But just, we get all these pictures of like all this supposedly deep space shit. And like, even recently I've seen pictures of, and I don't know where all this shit is in relation to where this planet would supposedly be, but like this alter Earth or whatever that they've talked about finding way out where it's, you know, I've seen a picture and it's just like a little green and blue bubble, and they're like, hey, it looks like that's, you know, basically like Earth, just in this other solar system somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm just pillars of creation. Yeah. And if we can take pictures of shit like that, then like, how did we miss a planet that's in our own solar system? Like,
I can tell you a little bit.
It's really tiny out there. It's really tiny.
yeah, I mean, I
It's-
get it, but like, that's probably pretty tiny in the scope of things too from here. Like, and that other planet that I was talking about, I can't remember what they called it, but you know, that's in a whole other solar system apparently that we're getting pictures of it.
Oh, the super Earth?
Yeah, super Earth. Yeah, I guess I don't. It was
Well, you have this everything comes as a caveat, but the biggest caveat of not being able to see things is the lack of light. If there's no light bouncing off of it, it's really hard to see. Then if you make it small, it's even harder to see.
yeah.
So if you have these nebulas exploding and all this light refracting off of it, we can zoom back in and see all that stuff, but just because there's enough light bouncing off of it, it goes through those mirrors and lenses of our telescopes.
All right.
Not to say that that's why we've overlooked it or not seen it, but it would make it really, really hard to see something so that far away in just our solar system, just simply because the sun's strength to bounce light off of that planet is so weak that we couldn't see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get that it's complicated and that things are going to be hard to see all the time, especially like I would have never assumed that anything in our solar system took 20,000 years to orbit the sun. Like, that's just wild to me, because I guess this supposed planet X, that's like further away than everything else. Like, what's the last planet that we knew about? Is that Neptune that's at the end of the line there?
Neptune's the end of the line, and then obviously there's Pluto
was the question mark.
Yeah, just like it's just a very large rock.
Well, that article said that the planet X was 20 to 30 times further out than Neptune is from the sun. So,
wow.
I wonder how far away that is in comparison to Pluto.
See, so if it takes 20,000 years for it to orbit it, and they just saw it for the first time, how do we know it's in orbit and not just like a thing that's coming closer? Like, where does the assumption come from that it follows this track? I mean, I guess there's probably some science shit that works it out a little bit.
If I start seeing a big face on it and it starts saying, "Show me what you've got,"
yeah.
I'm going to freak out.
I think we are aptly prepared to deal with the, what's that guy called? Something like that. But yeah, I think we could bust a move for the sentient planet if it ever came. But yeah, I don't know, man. This just doesn't do well for people like me, I guess, that are just like kind of shaky on like, what is real? Like, I don't know anymore, man. And it's just wild.
Space is such it's always fascinated me. Ever since I was a little boy, I still have all of my textbooks from science class when we talk about astronomy. And I love that subject. I watched a lot of stuff. Love it.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it was always... I was always pretty bored by it in school and stuff, but I've been more interested in it in the last, 10 years or so, I guess. Like, it seems more important, more relevant now, but I think that's, partly just because I'm kind of into aliens and shit, so it's just, what can I pair with this, alien conspiracy theory, and how can I reconcile that with reality? And how can I disprove it with what we know? But then, you get into the mess of just if there's aliens and all that shit and all these crash landings, then obviously they're not going to tell us what's really up with space. And you get into a rabbit hole that you'll never find the end of at that point. And as fun as aliens are to talk about, and Anunnaki and, potentially creation stories that are like that for the human race, you're never going to know. So it's fun, but you just have to be careful, I guess. And like I've said before, the certainty that people bring to this topic just is frustrating beyond words.
Yeah. And this is sort of off a little bit, but what are your thoughts about flat earthers? And where when I mention that, where does your mind go? What do you think when I say that?
Well, I think I don't know what to think about them, honestly. I kind of feel like flat Earth is the sideshow conspiracy to make people think that conspiracy theorists are all dumb. I don't know. There's a lot of really fun rabbit holes you can get into with flat Earth, because if you talk to a flat earther, they'll tell you that there's the ice wall that separates our known world from the rest of whatever is on the other side of it, and that's where you can find essentially it's like a D&D world out there, I think, according to some of them. That's where all the dragons are and the elves. And
in that case, I hope they're right. That would be badass.
And see, that's kind of where I land on it too, is this sounds way more fun than what we know to be true. So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. I guess maybe it's part of just dealing with depression and not liking a lot that goes on in the world that makes me kind of more interested in hearing what they have to say. I don't believe any of it. I'm not a flat earther. Let's be 1,000,000% clear about that. But I don't know. I think it's healthy to question certain things, but once again, just you're never gonna know. And I mean, I guess I mean, there's experiments that you can do to prove that there's at least some curvature to the Earth. I mean,
Yeah, look, the windmills going over the horizon of the.
Yeah, and I mean, you see, I remember a few years back there was some, I don't know who it was exactly, but there was like a flat earther that basically like disproved the theory himself on like trying to do an experiment. Like he was shooting like this light through a hole and like he was supposed to be able to see it from like however far away, and he couldn't.
Yeah, because it was curved.
But also like it's hard to say that that's a experiment that it's hard to say that that was done properly, because like even if the Earth was generally flat, we see not curvature, but like there, it's not all level is the thing. So like unless you're on a perfectly flat plane, which good luck finding one. I mean, it's hard to say how you would even do that experiment. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I imagine that most flat earthers are probably kind of in the same wheelhouse that I am as far as just like depression and just like not being super cool with the way things are. So then they fall into these other rabbit holes and shit like that. And they'll latch on to anything to kind of explain away why so much wrong is done in the world, and, you know, why people are lied to from their governments and stuff like that. It's like, oh, because they're protecting the secret.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I think an element of this sort of stems around trust within other people.
Yeah.
On some, and I'm okay to ruffle some feathers. In some level, it's demoralizing to hear about, just because of all the work and time that astronauts put into going into space and orbiting around space. And if the Earth is flat, why haven't we found the end? You know, because if it's just a straight plane, there has to be an end somewhere.
Right.
And if I were to get in a plane and there was enough fuel and start flying, we're going to end up right back in the same place.
Right. And see, I know a lot of the arguments that they like to bring up are like flight paths apparently typically don't, like, supposedly, and I don't know how true this is or not, but apparently, like, there's no flights that do go just all the way around. And I mean, I'm sure that's like a fuel thing. I don't know if that's even possible with what we have, and I don't know how you would prove to them that it is what it is, because like everything's just fake to flat earthers. Like, I mean, pictures of the Earth, they're fake.
You could technically refuel in the air, but I don't think anybody cares enough to satisfy their curiosity.
And see, like, I wish there was just some like crazy billionaire like Elon Musk or somebody that was like, okay, let's prove this once and for all. I'm gonna live stream this whole trip. Yeah. We're just gonna get up in a plane and we're just gonna fucking go all the way around and like take Alex Jones with you, take whoever you have to you know, speak to the conspiracy theorists about it. But like,
it has to be narrated by David Attenborough.
Right. Yeah. But just to put it to rest, like, we need like a super rich person just to get up there and do it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know.
And I mean, we're going to have everyone shut the fuck up because we're proving you all wrong, okay?
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that there would always be some excuse as to why they're lying or why it's fake or manufactured. I don't know. Flat earthers have persisted this long, so I don't know how to bring them back. Something that I think is a little more interesting, and I think this can maybe get us into our next topic that I wanted to touch on a little bit, is like something I think is more possible but still not really a belief that I hold, would be like hollow earth. I think that's a much more interesting theory.
Yeah.
And I know this got a little bit of heat recently. Tucker Carlson, which, think about whatever you want of him. I've been watching an unfortunate amount of his show lately because that's where a lot of our topics are kind of being percolated. But he had a lady on, I can't remember her name, but she worked for George Bush W, I think she worked in his administration. I don't think it was senior.
Okay.
But she was on, and she talked about how the government has apparently funneled a $21 trillion project into these underground cities and like bunkers for, I guess, the elite to burrow down into if things get bad on the surface. If there's like some kind of solar flare that fucks everything up, they can just go down into their hole. If there's like another fucking great flood or something like that. And man, it gets really... the first thing I think of is not really the hollow earth of it all, I guess, but just like, wow, they spent $21 trillion and we didn't know about it. Because that's demoralizing. That's what demoralizes me about the world, is just like you hear about all the
money.
Yeah, just everywhere you look right now, there's just money being squandered left and right, and it's just like, I'm working mandatory overtime for the last 7 years to keep the lights on, and
yeah,
it's like,
and they have disposable income just to.
Yeah, and not just a little walking around money or anything, but apparently trillions of dollars, and it's wild. But I guess if the elite class now can burrow down into the earth and make cities or whatever, because I've heard a little bit about this, like you hear about in Washington D.C. how they have like apparently these, I guess, tunnels and bunkers and stuff, which it makes sense. The Capitol, you got to protect your politicians or whatever, because you're not going to protect everybody else. So I mean, that makes sense. I can understand why they would build some infrastructure underground at the Capitol. But then you hear about like L.A. and apparently I've heard some talk of like a secret Starbucks or something like that apparently a lot of people have been talking about lately, where there's, I guess, underground systems for the richer people in California to get around in. That way they're not bugged by the peasants up top or
We're
whatever.
traveling tubes.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's interesting in regards to the Hollow Earth thing, because it's like, if we're doing that now, I mean, who's to say if there was one of those ancient civilizations or something that kind of gets talked about every now and then, if any of that turns out to be true, then who's to say that they didn't do the same thing? I mean,
yeah,
maybe they're still down there, not sure if the flood's cleared up yet. I don't know.
Have you ever looked at like the crust? These are your childhood textbooks to show you like the crust and the mantle, and the what they are saying is an iron core.
Yeah, what they say
is just like a solid iron core, and the reason it's solid is there's so much gravity pushing in on it that it's just a solid thing.
Yeah.
I would say that it's interesting for you to say that, because it's that, to me, the closest thing to us seems like the hardest thing for us to know, that we can't see, that we will never be able to see. I mean, I never say never, right? But
yeah.
Even like looking into other in the constellation, like way away, things that are so far away from us, I have a stronger belief in than what's right beneath us. What you're saying is so much more of a rabbit hole to go down.
Literally.
Just because, it's so hard to know. I mean, if you look at it, think about surface area, and then when you think about volume.
Right.
And I'm getting a little nerdy science moment for a second.
Do it.
So if we think about all the surface area on this coffee table here, it's like maybe 2.5 feet by 5 feet. And if you do the math, that'll give you the square footage. But let's think about all this plus all the volume below it. Like it was one big box, like an aquarium, and you fill it full of water.
Right.
You're exponentially,
yes,
adding adding space to this. Yeah. So let's compare that to the Earth. I mean, it's a god awful amount of square footage, or square mileage, so to speak. And think about everything below that, inside that. I mean, it's creepy to think about how much dirt, liquid hot magma is inside. And then if we're right with, bouncing sonar and all this other stuff down through there, like this
Right.
iron core. It's just almost scary to think about all that shit. I mean, you look at that crust, like from your textbook.
Yeah.
It's this tiny little like pin hair
Yep.
around the outer part, and then you get past that, and it's like all fucking
Metal.
magma, liquid
Oh yeah,
magma, and then this like giant iron core. So I mean, just to think about that and look at that, if that's right, that is almost scary to think about.
Yeah. I mean, and you hear bits and pieces of it. I guess like a lot of the Hollow Earth is, I guess Antarctica is supposedly where that kind of comes from. I can't remember all the details of it. I think there was something around World War II, like Operation High Jump, I think is what it may have been called. And there's this admiral for the United States government. I can't remember what branch or anything, but apparently he had like a diary that talked about how they like chased the Nazis to Antarctica and that they went into some kind of cave and just never came out. And there's supposedly like the entrance to the Hollow Earth is in Antarctica, I guess. And
When you're speaking Hollow Earth, like how deep are they?
I have no idea what they mean exactly by that. I don't know if it's just supposed to be, a few miles down, above the supposed, I don't know where the mantle starts exactly, but
Yeah.
I don't know if their theory is that the mantle is fake and that's where people live, or if it's like, I don't really know exactly what the working theory is on that, but I mean, obviously we can go underground and do quite a bit. Like you can see mining shafts and stuff like that. You can go down plenty far enough to potentially work out that area, and I mean, you could do whatever down there, I guess, if you have the technology for it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it makes, like I was saying earlier, it just makes a lot more sense than the flat Earth theories, like because you can envision a world where people could do that, I guess, is my point.
Yeah.
And I mean, you see stuff like whatever's going on with like the pyramids in Egypt that we looked at a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
like with
I was going to say that it's a
big
similar
structures going down. Is
concept.
and I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's possible. But I guess before we run out too much time, let's talk about the big thing for the episode, I guess, which is, I wanted to go a little bit deeper on this, but once again, like it's one of those topics where you can just go forever. And we're talking about 9/11. Tucker Carlson, once again, had Kurt Weldon, who is a former congressman, on his podcast. And essentially, Kurt Weldon, can you make sure I got that name right, Kills? But he was a part of like various safety committees and stuff like that regarding like firefighters and stuff like that. And he's kind of been leading this push for an opening of another investigation into what happened on 9/11. And I guess if yeah, that's him. And I guess what do you know about the conspiracy side of 9/11? Like, what was the red flags for you, if there were any?
Well, the original was the Fahrenheit 9/11, and I'm hoping that I'll talk a little bit about that, and then maybe tie in like whatever is the latest and greatest of, or the lack thereof, of the trade centers. So the one thing that's the most concerning to me is the fact that one plane could go in and it was like kind of in an angle. That first one, it goes in and it takes out like, I don't know, 3 or 4 levels.
Mm-hmm.
But that was enough to like dope, and like start pushing everything down right below it. And you could see like flashes at every spot. And they've asked so many like people that are do like controlled demolitions, and when they start talking about it, explaining it, I'm like, no shit. And they start saying it like, like these are folks that are talking about it that do these every day. I mean, they're talking about in Vegas. I mean, all the time they're killing these high rises and
Right.
building something new that's bigger and better and badder and whatever. But
Yeah.
normally when you crash through something that big, it's not just going to perfectly come straight down. It's going to go one way or the other. I mean, it's like Jenga. If you ever played Jenga, Jenga doesn't, but obviously not the same
Right.
physics and concept, and probably a terrible comparison, but it's concerning with that. Another thing that I read somewhere, and I can't quote it exactly the resource, but is they were talking about finding traces of thermite, and I know a little bit about thermite. I've watched. I'm nerdy enough about science, and I loved watching MythBusters. They play with thermite, and for those that don't know what thermite is pretty much it gets about as hot as the fucking sun.
Yeah.
And it will melt through steel, anything on, so right here it says some researchers claim they found evidence of thermite or nanothermite dust collected from the World Trade Center. That is fucking concerning.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people or I say a lot of people, but I guess the mainstream narrative dismisses that outright. And that's the problem with a conspiracy as big as 9/11 is just like, if they're willing to do all that, or I say I don't know what to think about it. I don't necessarily think that, like, Bush did 9/11. Like, he wouldn't have fucking known about it probably. But
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
it's just, I don't know. I guess what gets me is just, it's hard to argue with the fact that a huge ass airplane hits a building and it falls down. It's like, yeah, I mean, that sounds right, I guess. But then you like hear there's apparently a whole contingency of architects that supposedly the buildings were built to withstand such an attack. Mm-hmm. And it makes apparently very little sense that what happened to them happened. What gets me, first of all, do you know how many buildings fell that day in New York?
it was to my understanding that the World Trade Center fell. Both of the obviously both of those fell, and there was another building nearby that fell.
So
which doesn't make sense. That even
that's,
weirder.
That's
to
World
me.
Trade Center building number 7, and
Okay.
That's what freaks a lot of people out more than anything, because it's not hit by a plane, and it still falls down. And a couple years ago, there was a picture that started circulating that I'd never seen before, where apparently part of one of the towers like fell into it, and there was like this big gash down the side of it. And apparently that's what caused it to fall. But once again, it falls just like one of those controlled demolitions, just doo, 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 doo. And I don't know. I think that's where it gets a little messy, and that's where I don't know what to believe. Because it's just, I don't know. How do you have 3 different buildings that all fall in a way that they're not supposed to? It's just, and there's certain reports, like apparently the BBC, who was reporting on 9/11 in New York that day, just like every other news organization, apparently they reported that the World Trade Center building number 7 collapsed 20 minutes before it actually did.
Right there.
Yeah, right. And it's, I don't know, man. I don't know. And I guess, like, everything that came out of 9/11, it's hard to say that they didn't have motive for it.
Yeah.
Because look at the 25-year war that they caused after it. Like, I guess it hasn't been 25 years yet, but pretty close. And I don't know. Everything with like Osama bin Laden and everything comes right after that, and just the nature of the war itself that followed doesn't make sense either. Like, so
from my understanding, like the motive, the frame, the reason, the why, like what from the original, from what I watched and what I remember from this is it. Again, this is painting an ugly picture. But I'll just repeat what not necessarily my belief, but what I read and heard was that. Bear with me on this.
Yep.
This was an inside job because George Bush was an oil tycoon. So was the Middle East. We wanted control over oil and the majority, and this was a power move to get people fired up against the Middle East and incite a war.
Yeah.
So that's the big broad picture that was sort of painted from this documentary. Again, not to say that I believe that, but just sort of relaying that from what I gathered.
I mean, it's definitely possible, but even that motive just doesn't. I don't know if the crime matches the motivation for it, because like I don't know how important. Control of oil supply is obviously paramount to the success of any, first world country at this point in time. But I guess something that I've always had more questions about was Dick Cheney was a part of some kind of commission. No, not him, that too, but he was a part of some kind of like conservative think tank before 9/11, and they reportedly have some kind of document where they were discussing like how can they build up funding for the military over the next few years, because after the hippie movement and everything, apparently the military takes a hit, and they're figuring out how they can build funding for the military again, the military industrial complex. And he mentions that they need another Pearl Harbor, essentially, to drive us into another part of the world to then kick up funding for all this. And then like 2 years after they supposedly, and let me stamp all of this with allegedly because I'm not remembering the details fully right now, but supposedly like 2 years after they have that conversation is when 9/11 happens. And I looked at it. You can track the military spending and stuff, and there is an uptick after 9/11, but even still, I just don't know. Like, you're talking about, we go from, I don't remember the numbers, but say we go from like 560 billion to like 600 billion or something. It's just like, are you gonna kill 3,000 people and drop buildings?
For that little bit,
and it's just like, I don't know what the motivation truly would be, unless they're just truly that fucking evil that they're willing to do that to their own people for, money that they already have plenty of. But back to Kurt Weldon and what he was saying, there is a website, Kells, if you can find, it's not a great URL, just Google search like firefighter 9/11 investigation or something. There's like a whole movement kind of going on, and they have plenty of, it's like FF 9/11 if you see something like that on there. Try just typing in FF 9/11.
It's been uncovered. They've erased it.
Maybe FF911.org. Final Fantasy. Yeah. But let's see. Hold on. That's really fucking weird. Wait a minute. That's not it. That's not it either. Type in Kurt Weldon into the search with that and see if that pops it up. I don't know. Either way, there's a website where apparently this group of firefighters that, I think it was like a firefighter from the UK or something actually started all this, which is kind of weird to me, but this is a coalition of firefighters from around the world that are essentially driving forward an investigation into what happened that day. And Kurt Weldon also brings up like a whole slew of architects that are pointing out these inconsistencies with the stories and how it would have actually happened. And he says there's like 3,000 architects or something that are ready to testify that it's not proper what happened that day.
Yeah.
And once again, it's just...
I remember there was a study with the and I even watched a video a couple days ago with them talking about how they made the I-beams that constructed, and basically your I-beams, that's what's holding that building up. It's not all the drywall. It's not all the flooring and the suspended ceiling. That's all just, but what's really holding it together are those steel cold rolled I-beams. And you can burn an unlimited amount of jet fuel on those, and they're going to get red, and they're going to get hot, and they might bend, but they're not going to give. And that's where I keep coming back to that, where it really concerns me to know that we've done studies on jet fuel and how it reacts to these I-beams and cold rolled steel, which is how basically, and I'm pretty sure they were cold rolled steel I-beams that were made when the World Trade Centers were originally built. But then we find traces of thermite. I mean, is there any possibility of some chemical reaction where thermite could be present naturally?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, then we got a fucking problem.
You're right, yeah.
So,
but a lot of people point then to just how did they get thermite lacing these steel beams, and how was this set up if that was the case? And
easily, because there's so many people in that building. You could walk in with a backpack every day for a year and just, I'm just going to scoot in this little little sub level real quick, and I'm going to jump over here and drop a little here, sprinkle a little there for about a year. And I mean, just.
Well, right, but you're talking about not just the thermite, but you have to have a detonation system set up in place too. And I mean, that feels a little more complicated to me anyway. I don't know anything about how that would work, but just it seems like as much evidence as there is that something was wrong that day, it's still so hard for me to just justify it with, the why of it all. And just, I don't know. And I guess maybe the more logical place to go would be that it wasn't like an inside job, but something that happened to us that they probably knew that it wasn't strictly Osama bin Laden and his employees that did this essentially, but they can make it look that way and repurpose their target to whatever they want it to be, essentially. You hear the phrase like, don't let any tragedy go to waste and stuff from some of these high government types. And I feel like that's probably what it was. I think it's a lie that just morphed into something else. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know where all this is going to end up going. It's hard to say that it'll go anywhere because, I mean, at this point, we're 24 years away from it. So, I don't know. It's just something to keep an eye on, I guess, is my point and why I wanted to bring it up, because it's just interesting to start hearing. You're not hearing Alex Jones yell about it anymore. You're hearing former congressmen and firefighters and architects and like very serious people. And man, I wish we could find that fucking site, or I wish I remembered it. Not that I'm not blaming you. I wish I could remember what the site was, but
it's all my fault.
It was shocking to me because like they have like a videos tab, and it's a site that these people compiled, and you can go to their YouTube channels, and these videos have like a couple thousand views. Like they're not you would think any conspiracy content like this would be just all over the damn place. And I don't know. It does seem like there is some oppression of the information that's going on one way or another, which just makes people freak out more about it. So I don't know. I guess just watch out for more crazy conspiracy theories, I guess, and or old conspiracy theories coming back one way or another.
And I would also say I would love to hear some thoughts to our audience that are listening, and where their heads are at with it. Like, have they found something that's interesting to talk about?
Yeah, like what is that one thing that makes your eyebrow go up when you're talking about 9/11 and stuff? And I think
for
ultimately,
me it's the thermite, no doubt. The thermite, that's concerning.
It's just the thermite is just a matter of if it can be confirmed or not. Like, who is saying this? And I don't know. On that website though, there's a lot of videos like news footage from like Fox, CNN, all these mainstream places, and supposedly they're scrubbed from the internet and they were taken off of the air essentially from the repeat plays and whatnot. But it's people on the ground at 9/11 talking about explosions that they heard, like firefighters and shit saying, I was in this building and I started hearing popping all around me and stuff. Or not popping, but explosions behind the walls, and it's wild. And there's a lot more information to it. Do that 911firefighters.org. Let me see if that looks right. That URL doesn't look right. No, that's not it either.
All right, another thing too,
Russell Brand, we're done here.
Another thing to think about is above weight. So it did crash. I don't know, about three quarters up from the building itself. Essentially, you wouldn't have to have thermite at every level to get it to collapse. All you really needed to do was get one or two levels to collapse to create this sort of like inertia. I'm not going to go into physics. I'm not a physicist. Well, sorry guys, we're physics majors now.
Yep. We are the experts.
We are the experts. So just so you know.
And it all makes complete perfect sense.
Yep. What comes out of our mouths is the truth, the source of truth. You've heard it from here.
Yeah.
But it's basically sort of like a chain of reaction. If it had skiffed the very top, maybe those buildings wouldn't come down.
Yeah.
But the fact that they hit it like 3/4 in there, if that one collapse, that could be all enough for the 25% of the weight above it to push. Could that be enough to push everything down? I don't know.
I don't know, man. When you put it that way, it just still doesn't sound right to me. It's like I don't know. I don't know.
Because you have all that weight above you.
Yeah.
If you get one level to collapse, that might be all it takes.
Maybe. I don't know. I guess one more point, and then we can get out of here. But I remember in the interview with Tucker Carlson, Kurt Weldon was talking about a firefighter that went up while this was after the plane hits. He goes up. He uses the elevator to go up so far, and then he goes up the stairs up to where the collision happened, the floor that the collision happened on. And they have radio communications back and forth with him all the way up. And he gets there, and they're asking him, like, what's it look like? What do we need to do? And his response is that we can handle it, that it's not out of control. And then literally like 2 minutes later, the whole building collapses. Yeah. And just to hear stuff like that, I wish I remembered the firefighter's name because they deserve to be remembered. I'm just an idiot, and I'm sorry.
I think I know who you're talking about. I've seen this somewhere, but
it's been floated before. But just shit like that, man, it makes my skin crawl. It's just, how do you have people that have dealt with at least similar experiences before with like firefighters, architects? How do you have so many of them just being like, this is fucked up? And everybody is still so dismissive of it. When you look at people talking about it on like mainstream news sites and everything like that, being a 9/11 truther is almost as bad as being a flat earther to some of these people. It's just like, and I don't know. I don't have the answers. I don't know the why of it. I don't know the how of it, but I think you can see enough stuff in this case to know that something was fucked up about it. And I don't know. I guess my plea to the people is just listen to them. If they do come out with this investigation, just hear what they have to say, because something was wrong that day. I mean, and I don't know. I have no logical reason to believe this, but it's just something that is weird to me. I think it is extremely strange that there was a flight that on 9/11 crashed into a field that didn't make it to its target, and yet there was still another building that fell down that wasn't hit. It's
you
just,
think that one was the one that was intended for that one beside the other two?
I don't know. I think that's strange.
Yeah.
And that's all I really want to say about it.
Yeah.
I don't know how logical of a conclusion that is to come to. I just think it's weird that a plane didn't make it to the destination and there was a whole ass building that fell without being touched.
Yeah, that.
And I'll leave it there.
Right there with you. and I'll give in my 2 cents really quick too. Well, not really 2 cents on that, but just from watching some of these documentaries, I think the one thing that just really traumatized me the most from this whole, from watching footage, and back then you have to realize we didn't all have like good camera qualities, but seeing the people that were hanging on the outside of those buildings that were literally jumping to their deaths. They would rather jump and fall and splatter their whole bodies across the floor than burn alive. The thought of that just makes me fucking sick. Like, I don't know.
Just having that choice to make.
Yeah.
Do you want to burn alive or do you want to fall
Yeah.
for 70 stories or whatever it was?
So if this whole thing was gathered to fire people up, they certainly did a good job at that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was the emotional turning point for the entire country at the time. Like, and I mean, generations worth of people are, kind of semi-traumatized by that because it changed the way everything works. That's where the Patriot Act comes from. It's where, it's when airport security started being absolutely wild. Like, I don't know. A lot of things changed after 9/11, and I don't know if it necessarily benefits the people who supposedly did the inside job as much as I feel like it would have to. I don't know.
I'll say this one more thing before we conclude. I'll say that like our generation has been through so much. Like we had like the Pearl Harbor before our time, and World War II and World War One, but to think about, like, in our generation, we've been through the 9/11 attacks, the war on Middle East.
Yeah,
that's pretty much. I mean, I think we're still sort of tied in a little bit at some point. Yeah, I mean, I know most of us are pulled out, but even 24 years later, that
I mean, we still have military bases all over the place over there. I think because of 9/11, maybe some of that was, I know like Desert Storm happened before 9/11, and like some activity was going on before all that. But we've riddled the world with our military bases, and it
not only that we have that, we've gone through a pretty scary pandemic. I mean, I would say this to be argued, but I mean, a lot of people did that were, immunocompromised, lost their lives.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to downplay any of that or get into that whole subject.
Yeah, people that shouldn't have died from it.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
So I mean, we've been through a lot. So I mean, I would say we're pretty tough, resilient people, and we're a unique generation because I don't think that any other generation has been able to pair that. Maybe some folks a little bit older than us have seen through World War II
and all this.
Yeah. So like, I don't want to like say we're special or by any means, but we've seen a lot. We're tough people. We bounce back, and what inspires me more is to see what comes of this. Does things improve? Does it get better when shit like this happens?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yep. All right. Well, I know this is kind of a thick one as far as the content goes, but let us know what you think about all this. We'll hear you out. I don't know. What are we missing about this? What's the big detail that we're not bringing up here? I don't know. It's terrifying to think about, but I'm willing to be terrified if it means that we can figure out literally fucking anything about it. So,
yeah.
I don't know. Let's fucking go. Thanks, y'all.
See y'all.
Hello, Earth.
Have we met?